at the top of this page, I want you to write down these letters, okay? I used to just have run. Like, these are the mistakes I want you to run from. R stands for rounding. It's not going to work, but it's anyways, rounding. Units. And notation. Right? Rounding, units, and notation. Every time on a test or AC or a quiz, if you see an R like that next to an answer, it has a check mark, but then there's an R like that. Every one of those is half a mark deduction. So what's our reason? Rounding, right? I'm not going to take it to the extreme. Like, let's say you have 4 rounding mistakes on that page. Am I going to take 2 marks off? No. I'm only going to take 1 mark off because I think you learned the lesson. But on the next page, we start from scratch. Rounding. I'll still put the R's down. I just won't take more than 1 full mark off per page, okay? Because I want you to learn. My goal is that at the end of the year, you don't make rounding mistakes, just period. You just don't make them, right? That includes rounding early, and I'll talk about that later. Rounding too soon, okay? And then units, of course, is your centimeters, your inches, your degrees. Please don't forget about them, okay? There are the occasional times where there are no units. That's the only time you can just get away with it. And then notation is, for example, not writing down the x equals 2 or something like that, forgetting the equal sign, right? If you forget the equal sign or the times sign or anything like that, that's what notation is. But I think we're just going to leave it at that for now. So write the following as decimals and as a percent. Okay? Do not round finite decimals. What are finite decimals? Are the ones that actually stop, right? So let's try this. 3 divided by 4, right? So whenever you see a fraction, look at your calculator. The only operation that looks like a fraction is the divide, right? Number over a number, okay? So we go 3 divided by 4. That's a finite. That actually stops, right? So we would write down 0.75. And then you keep this on your calculator. What do you do to get something to a percent? Times 100, that's right. So it's 75%. So we go 0.75 times 100, that's 75%. It's important to follow what I'm doing here because it's those little things that are going to throw you off. Okay, let's try the next one. 5 divided by 6. Is that a finite? No, it actually keeps going. Your calculator just can't do more than that. So this is how you do this. 2 decimals we're rounding, right? So 0.83. That's what you write down as a decimal. Now percent, watch what we're going to do with percent. Percent, we actually go 0.8333. This keeps going. You multiply that by 100. So you have this answer on your calculator. You go times 100, and you're going to write down 83.33%. That's how this works. You don't take the decimal multiplied by 100. You take what's on your calculator multiplied by 100 to get me the percent. Or else it'll be called rounding too soon. Okay? I should say this about rounding. Oh, we'll do that next, so don't worry about it. Yeah. Don't do that. Don't do lines on top. We actually cut it. We're cutting it. Oh, you could have done that here if you wanted to, but not on your final answer, because you're actually rounding. You're actually truncating. Truncating. Don't be fancy, Mr. Dirksen. You're cutting it, right? So 3 divided by 32. Is that a finite? It is finite. See, it does stop. Like, it's not like your full screen is full. It's just part of it is, and it actually stops. So watch how what we're going to do here. 0.0, like we're cutting it at 2 decimals. That's what this course always calls you to do. The 3 doesn't do anything to the 9, right? So this is 0.09. And then you multiply that by 100, and now you write down the percentage. 9.3. What's going to happen to that 7? The 5 bumps this up to an 8, right? So see how it's not the same? It's not just 9%. It's 9.38% or 0.09, right? And so forth. So I want you to do the rest. I'm not going to do all of them. Let's go to rounding real quick. I should have done this before the rest. So wait a little bit with these. Let's go to number 2 here. Round the following to nearest hundredth. I want to say this. I know this is review for you, but I need you to all be on the same page. A 5, a 6, 7, 8, or 9, they will round up. Okay? Anything else keeps it the same. We actually call it round down, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, it basically rounds down. Okay, so this is how it works. If you're supposed to round to nearest hundredth or 2 decimals, you're actually wanting to cut it right here. And so this 4, right? The 4 doesn't affect the 8. So this is actually just 17.98. You go to the next number. It's asking you to round it to the nearest 2 decimals. So we want to cut it right there. 0.2. Before you write down the 4, you realize that the 9 will round up. So instead of a 4, you actually put down 5. Okay? And then so forth. Like you cut it here, 2 decimals, because by far every question will most likely ask you to round to 2 decimals. So this is 19.45 because the 4, you always look at the third number, and that's going to tell you what happens to that second decimal. Does it go up or does it go down, which is really staying the same? Because you're thinking this whole number is either rounded up or down. That's what you're doing. Okay? And so you're going to keep doing that for the rest of those numbers. Let's just do 1 and 2 for now until I do my attendance. You can keep going if you feel like you know what you're doing. Okay, so just do questions 1, 2, maybe this whole page if you know what you're doing. I'll pause it here. I'm just going to go over that first page, and then I'll probably get you to do some questions on your own again. So let's try this. 19 divided by 23. 0.883, right? Because if you look at the 2 where you want to cut it, the 6 bumps that up to a 3. Okay? And then you multiply that by 100, and you get 82.61 because that 8 bumps this to a 1%. Okay, so correct it. 7 divided by 8, 0.875. So let's just not round that, right, if it's like that. and then we multiply that by 100, and it's 87.5%. What do you do when you have a whole number in front? Well, it's really just 3, right? 3 decimal, and then you figure out what that decimal is next to it. We know that a quarter is 2.5, right? So you basically just combine the 3 plus a quarter, it's 3 1/4, right? And when you multiply 3.25 times 100, it's actually 325%. Okay. And then here, same thing, 17. You figure out what 1/8 is. That's 125, right? So it's 17.125. Multiply that by 100. Oops. 17.125 times 100. That's 1,712.5%. Can't have that in probability, but you can have that elsewhere. 24.5, I think most of you figured that out, right? 24.5 times 100, that's 2,450%. And now for the rounding part. I hope that you will get most of them, if not all of them, right. It's like the street cleaning, right? It always happens when it's the busiest. And now they're doing but that's good. They're really good to us here. So we want to cut it there. That 9 right here is going to bump this to a 9. So this is 201.99. Not 202. A lot of you will be tempted. It's like, I might as well just write down 202, right? No, don't do that. Next here, this is where you want to cut it. You look at that number to the right. It bumps this to a 10. Can't have that. So you carry the 1 over and make that a 2. Curious to see how many of you got that right. Okay, 1048.20. It's called the carryover effect, right? So this 6 will bump this to a 10, bumps this to a 10, bumps this to a 9. Right? So you got to keep going until there's a number that isn't 9, and that's when it stops. So this is 259.00, if you will, right? Another one of those. It's like a choo-choo train, right? So this turns to a 10, 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 and this turns to a 5. There we go. Right? So it's 500.00 rounded. Here is the next one. That 4 doesn't do anything to the 9. So it's 789.99. So it's always is it a number 5 or greater? It bumps up. If it's 4 or less, including 0, it doesn't do anything. Does that make sense? It might take you a little bit of practice. I know that. Don't give up after today, okay? I don't want you to be like, oh my goodness, right? Just follow along. I just want you to warm up before we dive into the first unit. Okay. So 3% of a number. Okay? You got to turn this into a decimal. Right? That is 3. Every time you see a percent, it's really 3 over 100. That's really what that is. So you're like, oh yeah, 3 divided by 100, that's 0.03. Okay? You cannot just go 3 times that number. It's not going to work. Okay, so that's 0.03 of, and math is times. Okay? So 0.03 times 250. That's how you work with percentages. Okay? And your final answer is going to be in dollars, right? Because you have dollars here. So watch, this is a little annoying part about working with dollars. This would actually cost you half a mark if you do it this way. whenever there's a price or anything, right, it has 2 decimals. So you need to make sure with dollars that you do that. Anything else, it doesn't matter. So I'm into the habit of just putting down 2 decimals no matter what. Okay. Next, watch this. Please don't drop numbers. Okay, that's rounding too soon. So you take the 2.75, you divide it by 100, and it's this, right? So we can actually say that this number translates to 0.0275 of is times, right? 2,550. Okay, this is in dollars. So let's go ahead and do that. 2,550. And there it is. Okay, our final answer would be 68.76. And we are in dollars again. So you have to watch your rounding, you have to watch your units, all of that stuff. That's converted the percent. This is a percent, right? Because of that symbol. So we go 0.85 divided by 100. Look at that. It's a really small number. Times 675. So you leave this on your screen, you go times $675, and that is $5.70 what cents? 74. Well, it depends. Are you paying cash or debit, right? Some of you that are cashiers know what I'm talking about. But it would be 0.74, right? And you keep going. It's like, oh my goodness, Mr. Erickson, you throw in a fraction? Like, what are you doing, right? No problem. 2.75 is 75, right? Percent. And now we can write that as a decimal. 2.75 divided by 100. And that's what that is, which we had up here already. So we're going to multiply it by that big number. And that is 15,000, right? 15,536.96, right? I kind of cut it here. I look at the 2, it doesn't do anything to that 6. So this is my final answer here. And this one, E, I threw it in as a curveball there. Let's see what you answered. So you convert the 25.64. I want to get rid of this symbol, so I need to divide it by 100. So this translates to 0.2564. Don't take anything off, just leave it like that. Times 7850. And we're talking people. So let's see how our answer will be stated here. That's 2012.74 people. Can you have that? In this case, you can't. So it's implied if it's number of cans, people, coins, what have you, we will say this. Approximately 2013, right? That 7 bumps that up to a 3 people. So it's important to me to write down the actual answer, but then round it to, in this case, it would have to be a whole number. So that's also under the rounding category. Okay. Okay, which brings me to my favorite part. You might know this as cross multiply and divide, right? It's also known as proportional reasoning. Set up your 2 proportions, right? Connected by equal sign. So this is how I do this, okay? Pay close attention. Where is my variable? Which side is the variable at? It's on the right side, right? So I highlight that. It's on the right side. That's where my journey is going to start. So go to the 38 here, put a dot right next to it. You're going to go across like this, and then you're going to go arrow to the bottom number. So it's a full journey, right? Across and then down. What happens first? You cross multiply and then you divide. Right? It works every time. So n is equal to 38 times 45. Are you okay with brackets for times? You've seen that before, haven't you? You should be okay with it. Divided by 76. And so whenever something is lined over, that means that that is going to divide whatever happens on top. So this is showing your work, and then you go n is equal to, so let's go 38 times 45. I have a habit of hitting equals when I do that. And then I divide by 76. So that's 22.5. We don't know what units we're in, but that would make the left side equal to the right side. If I were to plug this in here, these two would be exactly the same. Let's do one more. The m is there. So my journey starts on the left side. I'm on top on the left, right? You cross multiply, and then you divide going up. That's how easy these are. So you say that m is going to be 3.95 times 95.7. It doesn't matter which one you write first, because 2 times 3 is the same thing as 3 times 2, right? As long as you have those two multiplying, then you divide by what's on top. So you multiply the tops, then you go divide it by 124.5, and that's 3.04, right? If I round my final answer to 2 decimals, it's 3.04. That is the answer. Try that last one on your own. Are there more in the backside? I'm not sure. Yes, so try those on your own. Try a couple before we go. And you stay back 5